It's gone. There's no ice pop left.
I'm muted. Okay, sorry. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We're a few minutes after 8, so we're gonna probably go ahead and get started. We had a big weight room pull up. So my name is Laura with the Nesting Place, and I'm excited to introduce you to everybody to Melissa Larsen of ISR Stars. I'm going to quickly turn the presentation over to her as I'm in the middle of bedtime with my 3. But we are going to record, so if you have to drop for any reason, I know this is a tough time for a lot of people, but we're going to record so that we can share this with anyone who may have missed it. And just want to quickly, commend everyone for being here. I know it's hard to squeeze little things like this into your busy schedule, but this is a really, really important topic. And it's kind of one of those topics where once you know, you can never not know. So we love to share this amazing information with you all, with as many people as possible. And even after tonight, hopefully you guys can all be feet on the street, boots on the ground, helping to share this amazing message that Melissa has for us so that we can help keep our children safe and other people's children safe from drowning, as we know that it's preventable. So thank you everyone for being here. And thank you to Melissa for doing this at no cost to give us a one-on-one on water safety and what we can do to protect everybody. I'll turn it over.
Thank you. Thank you again. This is our 4th year doing this, and I appreciate it every single time because I truly believe that this information can change the course of a child's life. Just thinking about water differently and thinking about how you introduce a child to water for their first time, their first summer, really can make a difference. So thank you guys all again for being here during, I'm sure, the bedtime rush. And you could pop in an earbud and just listen. Any questions you have, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll get to them at the end. Or you can email me. Laura will send everyone an email when we're done. So you will have my contact information if I didn't cover anything tonight or you want anything clarified. My name is Melissa Larsen. I am a certified infant swimming resource instructor, or ISR, if you've heard that before. I am an occupational therapist, and I'm a mom of 2 boys. They're now 6 years old and 9 years old. And I found ISR when my firstborn was almost a year old. And we have a pool in our yard, and I wanted him to know something of value. God forbid he made his way to that pool. So when I signed him up, he was 14 months old, and I was blown away with what he learned. And I was fascinated with how he was taught that I signed up a couple months later to become certified myself. I gave up my 10-year career as an occupational therapist, and I moved out of state for my training. It's a 6-week in-water training and academic training that's really intensive. It's really scientific-based. ISR lessons are based on sensory motor learning and positive behavioral reinforcement. So as an OT, this was right up my alley. And I came back to New York, and I've been teaching ever since. And in that role, I've learned a lot about some misconceptions that a lot of parents have about water and things that we might be doing that seem like the right idea and seem safe, but they're actually having a detrimental effect. So we're going to talk about a lot of that. And the framework that we use to talk about drowning prevention is a layered approach. So there's not just one solution to end childhood drowning. There's multiple solutions kind of backing each other up, because each layer, the child can find their loophole through. So there's more layers backing it up to keeping that child safe from finding the water and from what happens if they do end up in the water. So the first layer, which a lot of people think is the most obvious one, is supervision. I keep my eyes on my child. They're not at risk for drowning. But I think understanding that solution is not enough. Yes, it's very important and it is the first layer, but acknowledging and accepting that there are times of your child's life in their first couple of years where your eyes aren't physically on them. So there are times when you sleep, there are times when you work, there are times when you shower, you trust other people to watch your child. So there's a lot of, again, loopholes that our supervision isn't reliable enough. And acknowledging that is the first step in, I think, already being safer around the water. There are viral videos you see of children, covering their sibling in peanut butter or drawing on the dog, spilling flour all over the kitchen. If those same 30 unsupervised seconds involved that child finding water, it can be a disaster. So I think, yes, supervision is important, but acknowledging that it's not enough opens the door to all these other changes you can make. If you're ever in this instance where you can't get eyes on your child, where's Johnny? When you hear someone say, where's Johnny, so-and-so, check the water first. That should be your first instinct. Run out to the pool, scan the pool, run out to the koi pond. If there's a lake or a dock, that should be your first place you check. If they're hiding under the bed or in the closet, time isn't really of the essence. When water is involved, there are seconds, valuable seconds, where we need to find that child and get them out of the water. If there's a group of adults around at a pool party, we want segmented supervision. So we want to acknowledge that there's always someone's eyes on the water, because the phenomenon that happens with a large group is that everyone assumes that someone else will be watching. And because everyone assumes that, then no one is watching. And I like saying it backwards to kind of drive it home, that no one will be watching the water if everyone assumes someone else will be the one watching the water. So kind of dictating whose job it is. And you can do a water watcher system. I give these out. I leave some at the nesting place. You can pick one up when you're there. If they need more, they'll tell me. I put them at the local library. The Hop Hog Library gives them out for me, just so people understand that this system can work, that everyone takes 15-minute rotations, being the one watching the water, scanning for anyone that might be struggling, counting heads, because the struggle that's happening is under the surface of the water. So there's no yelling, there's no splashing, especially with a young child that doesn't understand how to make their way back to the surface. It's happening under the surface. So it's our eyes we have to rely on. It's not hearing it. You have to be scanning and watching. So when you're the water watcher, you can use a whistle or a visor that gets passed around. You're not on your phone. You're not having a side conversation. You're actively scanning the pool. And then when someone relieves you, it's that person's job. So there's no miscommunication. I thought you were watching. I thought you'd be watching. That's really an adopted system of segmented supervision. Hiring a lifeguard is a great idea. I love when I hear that, but when that's not an option, or even just 4 adults and 8 kids, there should be always someone's eyes on the water at all times. So when we think about those loopholes we talked about, when the child did get out of your sight, keeping them in the house when they're supposed to be in the house is the next layer of protection. So having locks and alarms on all your doors that lead outside. If your alarm system chirps or chimes when a door has been opened, that's great. If not, you can buy aftermarket system that has a magnet. You attach one to the door frame and one to the door. When that door gets open, you hear an alert. So it alerts you, check on that child. Are they making their way out back? If you have a sliding glass door, that lock gets reachable very quickly. You don't realize how resourceful a 15-month-old is to push something up against the door, unlock it, and then slide it open. You can buy an, again, aftermarket push button lock that's high up that only you can release. If you have doggy doors in your house, consider sealing them up permanently. Doggy door is the perfect height and size for a child to crawl right through, but doubling down, it doesn't alert you that it's been breached. So you can be looking for your child and walk past a doggy door and not be alerted that it's open because it flapped back closed. If you walk past a sliding glass door that's been left open 3 or 4 inches, you're going to think, oh my God, they've made their way outside, and you'll get to them faster. So a doggy door, if you have one, get rid of it. If you're visiting people that have a pool and have dogs, ask them, do you have a doggy door? Where is it? Can we seal it off? Can we put something big and heavy in front of it while I'm here? Just because it's another escape route and danger, again, to break the barrier of keeping them safe in the house when they're supposed to be in the house. If you have a pool in your backyard, that pool needs to be fenced 4 sides. The pool itself should be surrounded, and the fence should have a self-locking, self-closing pool gate so that that child, if they make it out of the house, they don't have easy access to your water immediately. So if you have a gate and a 0 tolerance policy for leaving it propped open, so if you have older siblings or landscapers that come in your yard and go into your pool area for their big machines, they are not to leave it propped open when they leave. And if they do, they are no longer your landscaper because they left a danger open for your child when you got home and you were unloading groceries. So the idea being that they go to the next house that has a pool and a pool gate, they'll remember to close that gate and keep that next family safe. And the next landscaper you hire, tell them your policy and your story, and they will want to keep your account. And they will also be sure to close your gate because it is so important, because that water out there is a sleeping lion and you need to keep it caged because your child will be attracted to it. And then if your little Tykes furniture outside, your cars and your picnic tables and your playhouses, make sure they're not easily pushed up against the fence so that a child can climb up and over the fence or unlock the gate. Because again, children are very quick and resourceful and they want to get somewhere. They figure out a way. Twins are notorious for working problems out like this because if one didn't think of pushing the car up to the fence to climb up and over it, but the other does, and one didn't think to climb up onto the roof of the car to reach for the lock, but the other one does, they put it together and we have like double trouble. So don't underestimate what a toddler is capable of. Assume they'll figure it out so you have more protection for them, not less. So the fourth layer, so that's 3 layers. We have supervision, we have locks and alarms on your doors in your home, and we have a fence around the pool itself, not just around your yard. The fourth layer of drowning prevention is the child themselves. So if that child makes it out of sight, makes it out of your house, and makes it to the edge of the pool somehow, we want that child to have layers of protection within them. So we want them to be skilled if they are ever to fall into a body of water, trip and fall, that they know how to roll back and find their air or exit the pool. But I want everyone to visualize a 2-year-old standing at the edge of the pool, thinking about looking at the water. What will their next move be? And what will their expectations be? What will their understanding of the water be? And what is their own belief about their own skills? So this is kind of where I feel like as a general society, we've leaned into using wearable flotation devices to introduce our young children to the water. So I'll introduce this character. This is a puddle jumper, but any wearable flotation device that makes a child buoyant in the water, that keeps them up at the surface, falls under the same category. So whenever I'm talking about puddle jumpers or wearable flotation devices, I'm talking about the bubbles on their back, the suits with flotation bars built into them, water wings, life jacket, anything that keeps a child buoyant at the top of the water, breathing their air, falls under this category. So a young child, their heads are big for their body, right? When they're born, your head is like a fifth the size of your entire body. And when you're an adult, it's like a 20th the size of your body. But when they're very little, when they're infants and toddlers, they have these giant heads proportionally. A baby and a toddler and a young child is not physically able to be vertical in the water independently with their heavy head above them. So removing this device, having a child vertical in the water, they are unable to tread. So an adult treading water, it's tiring. You need to know how to do it properly or else you peter out and you're not successful. So this device, teaching them to be vertical in the water, is the first problem. The second problem is that it teaches a child that they are independently buoyant, that if they enter a body of water, they are held up by the water, or that they think they are capable of staying with their air by doing nothing. They could literally sit perfectly still and they'll still be with their air with this device. Their head is above their shoulders, their feet are below them, bicycle kicking or spinning around. So it teaches them an incorrect posture, and it teaches them a false sense of their own skill level. So again, we're thinking of this child standing at the edge of the pool, and if they've been taught these inaccurate lessons, and they've had infinite access of jumping in the pool, being brought back up to the surface, being encouraged to jump in, we want her to love the water, jump off the diving board, come in, I'll catch you. And it's taught to jump in, and they're taught to engage in the water over and over again. But again, each time they're getting this false information about this environment. And more, it's getting recommended for younger and younger kids. So like, again, 18 months old, parents are recommending, get this. This is appropriate for a 30-pound toddler. That's a 2-year-old. This is very young to teach a child about this environment, and children learn about their environment by engaging in it. So by letting a young child engage in the water this way, and being reinforced and encouraged and told they're so brave for jumping in over and over again, we're teaching them these inaccurate lessons, but it's forming their plan and their schema about the water that they plan their next move on. And we have, now we have ring cameras, not just security systems at hotels and public pools. We see what's happening in backyards, and kids are just entering the pool the same way they had over and over again with their puddle jumper on, only they're finding their way back to the pool without it on. They were at a pool party and they took it off to have birthday cake, or they went to the bathroom, and they make their way back to the water with the same expectations. Because again, they're young, they're little, they're impulsive, but they're making their moves based on their experiences. So we want their experience to be that they're not safe in the water by themselves. We want adults holding their hands, carrying them in the water, holding them on their hip, so they learn that they're safe engaging in the water with an adult helping them, present. So if they ever make it to the water alone, that they have that pause and that thought that I need mommy to get in this water, where was she? Same thing when crossing the street and crossing a parking lot. They learn so young to wait for you, reach up for your hand, and they hold your hand crossing the parking lot. Jumping in and being caught when they don't have skills to back up that jump, it's like telling them they can run across the street to you and letting that game happen and run across the street to your hands. But, you would never let them do that on their own, but you're telling them and it's okay. So if I try to think of like that analogy, you would never let your child run across the street as part of a game. Try not to encourage them to jump into a body of water as part of a game until they have skills, real skills to back up that jump. The Coast Guard approval is misused. It's marketed to parents to get them to buy in. So this is a Coast Guard approved device. The Coast Guard approves flotation devices for quick rescues off of a open water vessel. So if a child were to fall in off of a boat or a dock, that they are kept at the surface so someone can reach in, pull them back out, and get them back on the boat. There is no approval process of using a device in a swimming pool or as a learn to swim aid. The Coast Guard acknowledges this. There is no governing body that says that this is okay to use in the swimming pool, But there's no stopping a manufacturer from saying, this is a Coast Guard approved device, period. Have fun using it in your swimming pool. It'll keep your kids safe. And there's no reason your child can't wear a life vest if you're at a pool party and you're worried about them falling in accidentally and you want to keep them safe. That is what they're for, an accidental fall in. But they're not for swimming around for hours and hours and learning about the water that way. But they've been marketed to parents, I want to say, for the last 20 years. It's a fairly new phenomenon, starting these young children in learning about the water this way. And everyone wants their kid to love the water. I want your kid to love the water, but I want them to understand it first, and I want them to respect it, because that water is going to demand skills of you. It's not going to wait for you to figure it out. You need to know what you're doing if you're allowed to jump in a body of water. Drink some water. So I think when I see these recommended, and it's very much said it's a Coast Guard approved device, it's safe. That's all we're trying to do. We're trying to keep our kids safe. But this new lean to using these to getting our young children to love the water and learn about the water and learn to swim, it's actually backfiring, because these young kids think they know how to swim and they think they've mastered the aquatic environment, and they haven't, and that can have a devastating effect if they ever make their way to the water. When I was growing up in the 80s, we had water wings, and we had those floats you stepped into and it had a tank top on it, but we were 6 and 7 years old. I feel like there was an understanding that these help me swim, these help keep me safe. There was never toddlers and 15-month-olds in these devices. That young kid was sitting on the stairs next to mommy and daddy. They were on their hip in the water. So it has shifted, and it's so common now. And when you see it, if you're ever witness to it, a child walking right back into the pool after they took off their device, it's terrifying, because they had every expectation of being kept at the surface the same exact way. And they assume the same exact posture that has always worked for them, and it doesn't. And they're under the surface, and they don't know what to do. And that it's a devastating thought. So we want to not use these devices. We want to hold our children so they learn that they're safe with us. And that's the framework that we've set up. Just like crossing a parking lot, you hold mommy's hand. Just like when we enter the pool together, you hold mommy's hand, we go in together. There's no such thing as jumping in the pool and being allowed to jump off the diving board until you know how to swim and get to your air and find your way out. So what we want, if you do want to teach your child real skills in the water, find an instructor that knows survival skills. So we're talking about a very scientific approach. Your instructor should know exactly what they're doing, because again, these are very young kids we're talking about. We want to get to them before they're mobile. My son was 14 months old when he started, but we can start as young as 6 months old, as long as that baby is able to sit up independently. And the lessons are structured for my program 5 days a week, 10 minutes a day, and it takes about 6 weeks for our students to learn independent skills. So the way a baby learns a motor plan is slow repetition, picking right up the next day. We want to build maximum motor learning. So we want to be right on top of that pathway as it's built. We don't want to wait a week and then pick up where we're kind of backpedaling 1 step forward, 2 steps back. We want to constantly be on top of that new learning. And we want it to be what we want them to know. We want them to know that they're allowed to breathe with their heavy head flat on the surface and their body balanced. They're flat on their back. We want them to know that if they go under the water, to hold their breath, not blow out their bubbles and deflate themselves. We want them to hold their breath so they stay close to the surface and roll back so they know how to find their air again. Older children, they can learn to swim holding their breath, looking where they're going, and then again, rolling onto their back so they can get their air to either call for help or just continue that way until they make it to the edge. A lot of parents ask about, how young they are. Again, you want your instructor to be very knowledgeable about how they're teaching. They should be asking you questions every single day about your child's health and wellness, the day leading up to the lesson. How do they sleep? How do they eat? It's all very important, because a baby doesn't always tell you they're not feeling well. They show you. So their diet might change a little bit. They might have a rocky night's sleep. We know the signs of teething. So we're looking for those kinds of things. Like, is this a good day to have our lesson? Do we need a shorter lesson? And your instructor should be talking to you all the time. They should be telling what they're working on, what they're seeing. They should help you see what progress is being made and what they're focusing on so that you see it too. And I think that helps a lot for you to see the process of them understanding the water and how their body works in it. The final layer of drowning prevention. So the fourth layer is that child and what they understand about the water. But if that child either made it into the water unskilled, or on their way in, they hit their head and they were unconscious, or if the water was freezing and they couldn't respond, that we want to know CPR. Anyone watching your children needs to know CPR. You need to know CPR. The Nesting Place offers classes often. Sign up. It can save a life. So instead of waiting those valuable seconds for help, you can be the one to start re-administering oxygen and maybe decreasing the damage that could have been done. And again, grandparents, daycares, make sure everyone is CPR certified that's in charge of watching your child. We want to also, when you're swimming, have a partner. I never recommend swimming alone. Even myself and my older kids, and they're excellent swimmers, I don't like swimming alone with them. I'll wait until someone's with me, because I understand that medical events happen to anyone, especially in the heat, getting dehydrated, anyone has any blood pressure issues. Passing out in the water could be devastating for you, but if it happens to you and there's children around, now there's unsupervised children around. I talk about this a lot for my families whose grandparents babysit and have the kids in the pool with them. I just always say, is there two grandparents? Is there someone, God forbid, that could call for help if anything were to happen? Because we don't want to compound the tragedy, and we want help as soon as it can. And again, people can make their own decisions, but I don't recommend anyone swim laps alone and, lounge in the pool by themselves. It's God forbid anything were to happen, that water is unforgiving, and being unconscious in the water is an immediate drowning scenario. So that's just something to consider as well. Always have a partner or someone that knows that you're swimming that could check in on you. Think about those things, but certainly swimming alone with children, I don't recommend. If you're alone and you're outnumbered, maybe it's a water table day or a sprinkler day, and there's other ways to cool off. That's not just the pool, but I want everyone to enjoy the water. We just want to do it safely. When it is swim time for the pool, always think about dressing bright. So my kids' bathing suits are like obnoxiously bright. Everyone looks like a parking cone when they swim. Rash guards, reds, oranges, neon yellows. It should draw your eye. Red is awesome in the blue pool because it contrasts the blue water, but red also draws your eye. It's why a stoplight is red and a stop sign is red. It's meant to almost passively draw your visual attention. So dressing your child in that color when they're swimming in a blue pool is wise. Blue bathing suits, we don't want to swim in blue bathing suits in the pool because you blend into the water. And again, God forbid you're scanning for anyone in trouble. You don't want them to blend into the water and the currents of the water breaking up the visual of them in the water. So anything that helps your eyes zone in on that child quickly. Save your blue bathing suits for, again, sprinkler days and water park days and water table days. You don't have to get rid of them, but don't dress them in that color for swim time in the pool. I think I got through all of the information, and I please hope that you have some questions. But again, I think, like Laura said, once you know this, it's hard to unknow it. And now you'll kind of see it. Like the next time you go to a pool party, you'll see that 2.5-year-old that is just freely jumping in the water, running around the side, doing it again. And you almost see what would happen if they ever thought to jump in on their own. And it's a terrifying thought. So if we can get ahead of that before that takes place, and it's not something that can't be undone. I've taught children that have a history of a puddle jumper. They have all these false expectations and they get so confused and frustrated. But when they learn the right way to do it, they take off because this makes sense now. This didn't make sense when you took away my puddle jumper. Why isn't my body naturally buoyant? But that's not what we want them to think. We don't want them to think that they're naturally buoyant. We want them to be confident with real skills. And then teaching them to respect the water. So even skilled children are taught wait for being invited in. So everyone makes eye contact. We're told ready, steady, go. The adult that's going to be, with you in the water tells you you're allowed to get in the water. It's not the other way around, because then we have kids entering pools willy-nilly, and that's not a safe way to be either. So we teach a respect of the water and an understanding of the water. And from that, we want them to love the water. We want that love to grow with them. We want them to enjoy swimming and cooling off and showing off their new skills to their friends, but in a safe way. I see some questions popping up. I'm going to try, see if I can grab them. And thank you again for everyone being here. So when someone asked for a recommendation for signing up for survival swim lessons, when you ask around, my best recommendation is to ask someone about their experience. So you want someone who went to that teacher to talk about their personal experience with that instructor. Yes, we want skills, but we want it to happen safely. And there are a lot of horror stories out there for people saying they do it. We do survival swim. We do the same things that ISR does. And then I hear pretty unnerving stories that is not a safe way to engage a child. There's a way to interact with young children. You need that also, but I think scientifically you need to know what you're doing. So if you're going to ask around, definitely get recommendations, but talk to people who've gone through it about their experience. Don't just get a name and search it up. Even me, people that look up my website, I know I put testimonials up there, but I tell them to ask around, get some names, and go with your gut, with what's going to be right for your child. If you're not happy with the instructor, if you don't feel like you're getting accurate skills or effective teaching, speak up. Definitely ask what's their methodology. A lot, I see, again, I see a lot of advertised instructors, ask how they were trained, ask how they're going to approach breath control. How are you going to teach a baby? If you're saying you teach babies, how do you teach a baby how to hold their breath? How do you teach them that they're allowed to breathe on their back? There has to be, they have to have a system. And if it sounds like they're winging it, they might be winging it. So speak up, advocate. Don't stick around if you're not happy. There's a lot I hear. So I want parents talking. I want everyone talking about their experience with other parents, because they are popping up. All of these programs are popping up around, and you want to make sure your child's getting the best program and the best skills and the best experience for you as their parent. So someone asked, is there an age or they're safe to swim? So again, I don't, safe to swim alone, and you let the parent know. So I don't think, I would never recommend a child swim alone. I don't even want adults swimming alone because the water's so dangerous. I'm not sure about the question. If you could ask that, if there's a point where I consider a child swim. Go ahead.
Can I ask it this way? Yeah. So
Yes,
I
please.
meant more so if you are working with a child and you're doing the survival swim training with them over a certain period of time, is there a point at which you say, okay, I'm confident in this child's ability to swim? Obviously not alone. They have to be supervised, all of the other layers of protection. But is there a point at which you say, okay, this child knows how to find their breath, knows how to get out, so they are good to swim without you holding them or whatever that is? And if so, do you tell that to the parent?
Yes, that's a completed session. So we get parents in the water, and we teach parents how to play with their child in the water in such a way that is reinforcing their skills. So you're getting them to swim to you, and you're getting them to float for you. So they're doing it by themselves, but you're there making sure that they're doing it how they should be. And then you pick them up and cheer and everyone's proud. So the parent would be in the water with the instructor just to make sure they're not hovering or touching or kind of taking over too much, because that child might say, oh, you're going to do it? Okay, I'll do less, because they're used to you doing things for them. So we don't want them practiced at not doing it for themselves and accidentally getting reinforced for that and told, when you're with mommy, you don't have to do it. I'll do it for you. So we want them practicing their independence with you. And then if you meant like an age where they're safe to swim.
No, not an age, just a point, basically asking if somebody signs up for the course with you, if at the end of that course they're still not there, you wouldn't say, okay, this child is good to go. You'd have to do more sessions and, sort of start over until you feel they're at a comfortable point.
Right.
Okay.
And what age is a good age to start ISR? I mean, we can start as young as 6 months, but there's not a too old age limit. I mean, one of my friends brought her 9-year-old to me who wanted to learn and had no luck with her town lessons and her private lessons. So we just took our time. I talked to her a lot. So I kind of used the same exact methodology that I would use with an infant, but I talked her through it. So there's not a too late age to start. We want them all to be safe. There was a recent drowning of a 7-year-old last night or the night before. It can happen to any child. It's just terrifying to think of what happened. But giving them the skills to find their air, gives them a chance. And we want that chance. We want them to be capable if we're going to allow them to engage in the water. Ocean water safety. Again, ocean is a risky one because of riptide and waves that are unpredictable. Anything like that, we have to have strict boundaries and set it up early. So if you don't want them running into the ocean, like you wouldn't want them running into a busy street or a parking lot, treat it the same way. Treat it with the respect that you want them to have and be consistent. So if they're not being safe and they're running into the water, we either move away from the water, give them toys and buckets and more interesting things to be doing on the sand than the waves are interesting. But yeah, the beach and the waves even stress me out because they're so unpredictable and they can knock anyone over. So let alone a toddler. And then the rip current, if you're not aware, it kind of looks like the water is pulling away, but it's very strong. It can pull you out away from the shoreline. So we don't even want to think about a toddler dealing with that. But again, floating on your back is a way of managing a rip current. That's what they advise you to do, is floating, waiting until the rip current breaks, and then swimming parallel to the shore where you can swim back and you're not fighting against the rip current. So again, floating on their back is, if we can get that skill implanted early. But again, even if they know how to float, I still wouldn't want them running into the waves. If we can get lessons, if you don't have your own pool, there's no requirement for having a pool. I believe all the ISR instructors on Long Island teach at their own locations. So you just have to find the closest one to you. Okay, got that. So after a child is skilled from their initial session, we do recommend, because they're going to grow, right? Their body's going to change from that initial session. So if you don't attend lessons for about 6 months or so, we recommend a 2-week refresher, because they're going to have a different body at that point. They're going to stretch out, their weight distribution is different, they're taller, their limbs are longer. So their skills that they learned don't match this new body. So we want to refresh their skills to match their new body. What some parents do if they learn their skills in the off season is attend regular maintenance lessons, which is maintaining their skills as they grow. So it's not as abrupt a change. If I haven't seen them in 6 months or a year, we want them to adjust those skills as their body is growing. So some parents come once a week, once every other week, and we just keep them using their skills as they grow. And it's also good to kind of troubleshoot. If we see them trying to lift their head up out of their swim and they're trying to get vertical again, we can fix that as it's happening rather than it being this whole new issue that they've figured out. So some parents do it one way or the other. Some parents are teachers and can only come in the summer. So we always recommend book that 2-week refresher right away so that we can get them safe for summer with this new body that they have. I try to teach on a lot of school breaks and school vacations because I have a lot of teacher parents that can only come when they're off or their kids are off. So that's one way of keeping their skills fresh. But again, those parent lessons are so helpful because as you open the pool cover, you're ready to practice and play and see some of those issues so we can fix them early before they've become problems that they're working with. I teach in Comac. I teach year round at the JCC in Comac. There are a couple instructors out east. Laura's going to send everyone a wrap-up email, and that is going to have my email. And anyone who wants to, I can send you all the information about it and about other instructors to find as well, where you're located. When I was looking for an instructor and I was working full-time, there was one ISR instructor on Long Island. She was Christine McCarran. She's out in Port Jeff. And it's 40 minutes away. So every day after work, I got in my car, packed up the baby, drove to his lesson, got back in the car, did dinner, bath, bed, repeat. Everyone thought I was crazy. I never looked back. It changed everything. My kids are 6 and 9 now, and I'm thankful every day that they have this background understanding of the water. Even now, when they get tired, I see them just get on their float, catch a few breaths. It's just a basic, that's how we want them introduced to the water. And if that's not possible, don't use this as a substitute. Hold your baby, hold your child so they know you are the one keeping them safe in the water until they have the skills to back that up. Oh, thank you. Carrie Hayes. ISR is the best money I ever spent. Yeah, I'm telling you, it changed everything. It changed how I understand water and how I wanted my kids to understand water for the rest of their life. And if anyone, again, has any questions beyond tonight. One more. Thoughts on flotation devices toddlers sit in. So those are different. Sitting on something is the same as sitting on the step. So there's no false information they're getting from sitting on top of a float. Anything with leg holes where their legs dangle and half their body is submerged, I would avoid those. But something where they're sitting on top of something where they're mesh bottom inside of a ring tube. The river run rafts are really great. They have a mesh inside the tube itself. So the child is sitting on the mesh and it's like a little kiddie pool that's floating in the water with you. And I just would dump toys and fish in there and they would play, and it would keep them busy and entertained and active while they're in the water and they're not getting that false information. So that's a really good question. So I don't always have to be on your hip. They could be on the stairs, water cans, watering cans and dumping cups. Just keep them entertained so they don't get creative of doing anything funky in the water, or sitting on a float or raft that has a flat surface. Yeah, that's a lot better. Thank you guys. These are really good questions. For teachers, yes, in the summer, right. So a lot of my teachers only come in the summer. So they sign up for that first session that starts, usually I start the week after school ends. But again, other instructors might do it differently. So I always recommend getting on some wait lists. And as soon as sessions are open that work for you, grab a spot then, because they fill up quickly. And there's only, again, you want someone that will teach them quickly and effectively. And hold on, they're popping up quickly. Sorry, as I'm scrolling and another one comes in, I lose where I am. So if ISR is not in your area, sorry, they keep disappearing. Are there any videos or techniques? So I wouldn't recommend any videos that are, like online resources to teach your baby how to float and swim, only because they don't take your baby into account. So they can't possibly know your baby's health and developmental history. They don't see how your baby responds to a certain technique to have you change it or modify it. So a strict video technique, while that would be incredible, might not be safe because, again, this is a very careful practice of allowing a child to submerge their face or timing their breath so that they get it right and don't have a bad experience. Getting your water up your nose is uncomfortable, so we want to make sure that it's not a negative experience for them, but we also want to make sure it's safe. So a video that tells you what to do and isn't responding to your child themselves doesn't sound safe. So I don't recommend that. I really recommend just holding them, and they're learning that you keep them safe, and that's better than anything else that could teach them. Mommy and me classes at like swim schools, if they're just water acclimation classes, I think that's fine. I would just understand that they might not be teaching your child skills, but it's okay to get in the water. And with the young kids, I know they do a lot of like letting the water trickle on their face. I don't see anything wrong with them, but I don't know if they're going to learn actual independent skills. But I might be wrong. I only go based on what I've been told. So that's from my understanding. So I can't, from what I've heard, that the Mommy and Me classes don't teach actual skills that you can walk away with. It depends on the session. I book a couple of months in advance for the summers and the spring, which is the most popular. Usually open that in October. But I don't recommend waiting for the late spring and summer, because we're racing the clock for Memorial Day and the pool cover's coming off. I want everyone solid and skilled and confident way before that. So, and then we're just practicing. Then we're just, tidying up loose ends and getting those parent lessons in so everyone feels good and ready for the summer. But again, some parents can't do it until the summer. So there's nothing wrong with learning the summer. There's just a lot of rules that I tell my families. There's no practicing until we're skilled. I don't want them getting any, wrong ideas. And some kids were in their puddle jumpers in the pool up until a week before they started with me. So I try to explain, we don't want them to have this one concept and now I come in with a whole different idea that they don't understand. So in my initial email, I'm like, just wait till we're ready, like wait till we have some skills and then give them a little more freedom in the pool. Are there any more questions I can answer? Well, I hope everyone took something away tonight that maybe you didn't think of before and hadn't thought of. And I hope I changed your thinking and changed how you'll approach the water. Thank you all again. I think, Laura, you there? All right,
I'm
guys.
here.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you to
This was
everybody for
awesome.
attending.
Yes, this was wonderful. Thank you guys so much. Great questions.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.